The Goldwing, Honda's pinnacle in touring motorcycle achievement, unchanged since 2001. And why should it? It practically sold themselves. But the ridership was starting to feel it needed some changes from the old way. They needed more features, more benefits, and of course more colors. So after 16 years of no changes, Honda was trying to make a critical choice. Do they stay with the old and not make any changes, just color, or do they take a bold step into a future with new features and new benefits? Because after all, the future's where we're all going, isn't it? And it's just up ahead. What the Honda engineers faced was an incredible challenge with these steps into the future. They literally had to put a square peg inside a round hole. So the engineers were ready to face the challenge. They just had to bridge a gap. You know, the one we all face and manufacturers do, the age gap. Well, the engineers and designers sat down at Honda, and after 17 years, they were ready to change that wing that their ridership knew so well. The trouble is, they were trying to make a coffee that everybody wanted again. Well, some of us just might like a different cup of tea. Cheers. Okay, so in order to get to the new wing of today, we should go back to the start. The history of the Goldwing started way back in 1972, when the idea came to a Honda design team to create the ultimate luxury and performance motorcycle, and it was to be so different that they gave it a code name, Project 371. Originally, it was to have a flat six motor, like today's models, as the motor was coming from their car division, but the transmission length and cramped riding position due to the larger motor was dropped for a simpler four-cylinder instead. But still, with 4 cylinders, shaft drive, first 4-stroke liquid-cooled motor, Suzuki beat them with a liquid-cooled 2-stroke in the GT750, this bike was ahead of its time. Then, just a few years later, it was ready to be shown to the American dealers at a surprise intro in 1974 in September. In Vegas, where else? This was going to be a good bet. Then the world saw it for the first time the following month at the Cologne Motorcycle Show, and the GL 1000 was born. So from its 1975 opening to the final 1975 version, the GL 1000 with body fairing and add-ons, new wheels, a whole new industry was started from add-on companies, and the sales in the US hit 97,000. And in bigger news, it moved its entire production of the GL 1100 to the new USA Marysville motorcycle plant in Ohio. The GL 1100 remained the same, naked, until in 1980 when Honda added a version of the wing for the public after starting to see the competition from other Japanese manufacturers, including Yamaha and Suzuki. This was their first full dresser version and was named the Interstate, and in 1982 it added the Aspencade model to the lineup, which gave the ridership 3 models to choose from, right up until 1984. But if you skip ahead just a bit to the next big model change, to the Goldwing lineup, we meet the GL 1500, and the 6-cylinder model was born. This model lasted 13 years with changes here and there, but it started a trend of not bringing any huge changes, just mainly trim, as the sales numbers were not dropping off at all. They were actually growing. However, this can be a bad thing. Not the sales, I mean, but sitting back and not changing with the times. So this led us up to 2001, and the 5th generation and longest run of the Goldwing design ever, the GL 1800. The flagship that was known as the Wing throughout its run, the most recognized motorcycle out there, even to the general public. You say, I rode a Goldwing, and they knew that look. With its all new frame and motor, sporty handling, and great looks, Honda was off to the races with yet another huge hit. However, the more things stay the same, the more they are likely to change. And that led to this startling news in 2009. And I quote, in a bit of a stunner, America Honda announced that the motorcycle production at its plant in Marysville, Ohio will cease in 2009. The production currently of all GL 1800 Goldwings and VTX Cruiser models will move to newly expanded state-of-the-art facility in Kumamoto, Japan. Honda stated, the timing has nothing to do with the current economic downturn. Those employed making motorcycles will be offered positions in the Marysville auto manufacturing activities. No layoffs are planned. End quote. Well, we all know about the '08 crash in the housing and finance markets. Well, it hit the bike sales market hard too. And as much as American Honda did not want to change the Wing, Japan saw that they needed to. And with the takeover production in 2011 to Japan, the designers went to work, including the US marketing team, to bring some much needed changes to their beloved Wing. Now, with the new 2012 Goldwing, some things did change, getting fairing and a body style updates, and bigger rear bags and navigation updates. Plus, a new model popped out of the woodwork, the new single man's Wing, the F6B Bagger, as it's called, a slimmed down version with no rear top box and a cool solo tough look. I affectionately called it the Divorce Special. No offense. But all in all, the GL 1800 stayed relatively the same for a startling 17 years. 17 years. A lot can happen to the outside world in 17 years. And the markets knew it, and so did Honda. They had a massively easy time in the 80s. Ah, the 80s. Remember the 80s? I do. And it was an amazing time for motorcycles. Motorcycles were so cool, there were even TV shows made about them. From flying motorcycles and aliens to saving the world from the bad guys. If you had a motorcycle, you could do anything. And sales were beyond easy to make. No high-pressure sales tactics were needed here.
Interested?
Yeah, a bit pricey, aren't they? How much?
Who's talking about price? We're talking about a machine here.
Here, come here. You sign your name
Right there. Right there.
Okay, maybe a few. And then things slowed down a little and forced the manufacturers and Honda to produce slightly more affordable bikes. You know, for everyone, because everyone wanted in on the fun too. But something else changed as well. The computer revolution was here, and the 90s entered the 2000s, and high-tech started to enter everything, even motorcycles. And some manufacturers were getting ahead of Honda, and they knew it, and they needed to make a change. But after 17 years with the same bike, how do you change? What do you change? Who do you appeal to? What ridership? So focus group after focus group came back with hundreds of mixed ideas. Like 6 speeds for one, the Wing still using only a 5-speed transmission, and a bigger tank. They wanted longer trips. And a big gripe was the lack of a powered windshield that could raise and be lowered. Its little brother, the ST1300, had one, so why couldn't the Wing? The big takeaway from the focus group, the age gap. So the marketing at Honda in their focus groups noticed one thing: the age of their ridership, how old they were. When they got their first wings in 2001, they were in their 60s, late 60s. 17 years later, when this new wing was coming out, they'd be in their 70s. And time whipped by, and so did the competition. Well, maybe not whipped by, but they were certainly nipping at their heels. But there was the problem. Like I mentioned earlier, do they create something new for younger riders, or do they answer to the old ones? They needed to bridge that gap, that age gap. They did see, however, one glaring important thing. The older riders were hugely mechanically inclined. You know, they could fix their bikes and loved to tinker and work on things. Part of that independent survival thinking of the day. But they were just not technically inclined at all. They were just not upgrading themselves. They were retired and enjoying the open road, just the way it was to be. And Honda had to make a big decision. With the Generation X ready to take over from the baby boomers of the 50s, the Gen Xers had a better grasp in technology than their counterparts. So Honda rolled the dice and went with the high-tech choice for the new model to come. And that decision led to the bombshell that was announced by Honda Motorcycle Division at a grand event on October 24th at Santa Barbara, California at 10 p.m. With the world press in attendance, Honda unveiled the new bike on a rooftop patio at Moxie Museum of Exploration. Timed perfectly with the Tokyo Motor Show in Japan, also launched at the same time, just a day ahead of course. And with the unveiling came a whole new bike, literally from the wheels up. The two-wheeled world came to a screeching stop to look at this new wing, and the first thing someone says was, "It's been through a dryer." Then quickly to the strange fact that the forks appeared to be gone. Well, these were all part of the new engineering changes put into the new wing by Japan. The motor had only gone up by 1 single cc, but the head now sported a 4-valve arrangement instead of a 2, hence the larger look. The front end was an all-new double A-arm type, close to the car design where it came from. This allowed the wheel to travel vertically rather than back into the bike. And without getting too technically crazy, this allowed the trail to remain mostly constant in a corner under load and give great feedback about the front end grip. It lost that scary feeling of the front tire tucking under in a hard corner. Plus the added bonus, it moved the motor farther forward in the new frame. And why is that a bonus? Well, with it forward, the bike again handles better in the corners as you can move the rest of the load lower and more evenly between the wheels. And also, you can add a bigger transmission, as in an all-new 7-speed DCT transmission. That's right, an automatic, even though I don't like to use that word. The next big change came in the dash and the controls. No more individual buttons for each function like the old dash, but a single central mounted joystick control arm in the center, with the same button and type controls on the left handlebar. This dash covered all controls of the radio, navigation, bike info, bike suspension settings, tire pressure, outside temperature, on and on. And a first for a motorcycle, it had Apple CarPlay, for those of you who have Apple smartphone. I could go on for several videos about the tech alone in the new bike, but thankfully there are hundreds out there already doing it for us. But what I'm mostly interested in is the ridership, and if Honda got it right. Well, as many of you know, but some don't that are new to this channel, I can sell you a wing, as I've been selling them for over 26 years with Honda at the dealership level. And from the view behind my desk, it was kind of a mixed reaction. The reviews were great by the press, and everyone fell in love with the new DCT transmission. The crowds at the bike show were all over it, and mostly the older wing riders. They loved the new lighter weight and sat there jaw-dropped at how easy she was to get off her stand. I was flooded with requests for deposits and had a hard time keeping up. With the showroom busting with traffic and requests for test drives of the new bike, my demo was having a great time, introducing itself to the old guard, as it were. So Honda had hoped for a younger generation to consider the Wing, and for the first year, from where I sat, they got that wrong. A good 95% of my sales were the older Wing riders finally looking for that upgrade they dreamed about. And the bonus was the automatic, the DCT, and quickly became the star of the show. So the sales rolled in and the Wing was once again a hit. And it brought over many converts, as we say, from the other motorcycle companies. But it also brought new issues. Tech support. Much needed tech support. The older ridership was trying hard, but could not quite grasp the tech and make it work. My customer calls were all for tech support, struggling with the software. And I don't blame them. With 2 possible operating systems in the bike's dash, they were constantly needing help with Bluetooth and connecting and different controls with Apple CarPlay versus the Honda controls. Like for an example, you could have Apple Maps, Google Maps, Waze, and with every update Apple got, more icons would appear. And this generally confused the older, not technical types. But I did have my share of older, early adapters that loved tech and did keep up to date with it. I also have to thank my fellow YouTubers out there for all the great instructional videos. Please keep up the good work. You're helping all my customers. So the new Wing went rolling along, and the sales were doing great. And the updates that came along were software, rather than the mechanical kind. You just simply got the update from the website, installed it on a chip, and put it in the bike. What could be easier? You see what was happening. The software that was us was quickly being replaced by the software on the bike. And now, with the Wing entering its 3rd year and getting its first mechanical update in the form of wider passenger handles and stiffer springs in the front and rear, plus standard fog lights for 2020, the sales numbers are still strong, and the DCT sales from my side of the desk are still number 1, almost 6-to-1 DCT to standard. And as for the age gap I talked about earlier, well, the Wing is attracting younger and younger riders with its sporty new feel and looks, but not so much getting them quite on board yet. And Honda has noticed this, and they kind of knew it from the start. You see, they put something in the Wing from its first day on rollout as a feature that some loved and were very thankful of. Others barely noticed the announcement. What was it? The announcement stated that navigation would be freely updated for 10 years. Wow. Nice. Thanks. But did it have another meaning? Because while the US announcement was going live in California, I watched the Japanese announcement live as well on some of my Japanese friends' Facebook pages. And although I can't speak Japanese, they did keep saying one word in English when they were talking about it with the engineers and answering questions from the press. The word was Final Edition. You see, in 10 years, 2017, it will now be 2027. And not to be a downer about the bike world, but there is something coming that will change everything by 2029. But that is another whole story. And besides, it's years away, right? The history of the Goldwing has endured from the 70s to today. And with this brand new Wing, it will carry us down that road, I'm sure, for years to come. There will be updates, software, a little trim, I'm sure. But one thing will always remain the same. The feel of that motor starting, putting the kickstand up, visor down, and looking out that open road.
Where would you like to ride today?
I don't know. That away.